Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you all so much for coming back with us and hanging out to talk about the criminalization of Black girls. We are definitely here wanting to take a stand and, make sure our voices are heard as it relates to this particular topic. So thank you all so much for tuning in with us. I'm going to give it a little time so, everybody can come on. We have 3 viewers right now. So thank you all for joining us. You ladies are on time. So thanks so much. Thanks so much for being on time. Those of you who do not know me, my name is Shatina Edwards, and I am the CEO and founder of Mean Girls Empowerment, which is a non-for-profit organization empowering young ladies to avoid negativity and build self-confidence. I am excited to have all of these wonderful women here with me tonight. Super excited that they came to hang out again with me to talk about this topic tonight, challenging the criminalization of Black girls. So let's get started. We are returning for a follow-up to this discussion on challenging the criminalization of Black girls. So again, I want to thank everyone for joining us. All roads lead to the health and wellness of our Black girls. Our panelists today consist of representatives of each space a Black girl may encounter in their life, especially if they are victims of poverty. One way a Black girl life is shaped is by her education through school. And here we have Miss Renita Streeter. She works as a principal in the greater Chicagoland area. Thanks for joining us, Renita. Clinicians and counselors in school are tasked with advocacy and accountability. And we also have with us today Ms. Chanel Hill and Caitlin Palmer, who will provide an in-depth analysis on their work within the schools. Thank you so much, Caitlin and Chanel, for joining us tonight. And Aisha Anthony serves within the largest juvenile detention center in America, the first, should I say. We will hear from her, and we'll hear ways in which Black girls, Black women are supporting each other within detainment. And then lastly, we have Ms. Bianca Bell. Her work speaks the efforts of various pipelines, such as school to prison. Bianca complementary work will allow us to explore how Black women reflect on their lives after having to be in school or in jail or in prison. So thank you so much, Bianca, as well, for joining us as well. So ladies, you all came back to have a great time. And I don't want to prolong this conversation because I know last time we had so much to discuss and we didn't want to go over time, but I wanted to kind of bring out some of those questions that we discussed last week and then kind of add a little bit more to them as well and take a deeper dive into our discussion. So Renita, the last time you spoke about the criminalization of girls beginning before the handcuffs are even placed on the girls' wrist, can you speak more to this and what have you seen occur within schools that have not set Black girls up for success?
Absolutely. Thank you so much again for having me this evening. When it comes to our Black girls and how they are set apart at a very young age, even before a handcuff gets on them, it can start as early as kindergarten. It can even start as early as preschool. But I'm just going to particularly talk about the setting. And when our students are in a K through 5 or K through or 6th to 8th grade setting, oftentimes our educators begin to stereotype, begin to put names on them, begin to put them into these roles that they don't belong in. So, for example, I've often had the conversation that, oh, this young lady has an attitude. She rolls her eyes. You need to talk to her, Miss Streeter. That's what I often hear. And this sets a trajectory for this young lady to be set apart from her other classmates as being a problem child. as being a girl that's going to be set up for failure, as being the girl who's going to end up in fights, as being the girl that's going to be a teen mom, it starts that early with the smallest things that happens. And the problem is that if we don't take the time to go into cultural proficiency and understanding what cultural diversity is in our schools, then we don't take the time to understand that we are all very different. And conversely, when we look at our students who are Caucasian, there are things that we have to understand from the other perspective. Oftentimes, Caucasian students respond with the response of what, instead of as how most people in the Black culture respond to an adult as yes. And so when we have that, we can immediately think, oh, that person is being disrespectful. That is not, they are not being disrespectful. That is just common for their culture. Same way, if a young Black girl rolls her eyes or sucks her teeth or smacks her lips, she is not being disrespectful. It is something that is common for her culture. That is the way that she chooses to respond to that particular incident, but it has nothing to do with being disrespectful to an adult. But when that happens, it literally sets a path for this young lady or these young girls where they are set apart and they are picked on, and they are in a sense where they are looked at as a future troublemaker, and they are pegged as they are going to be this. And literally it can follow them from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade. It travels over to the junior high and on to high school. And it's very difficult for those young ladies to get out of that stereotype that has been placed on them, with them having nothing to do about it. Without having any disciplinary infractions, not having referrals, not being suspended. It has nothing to do with that. This child, these young ladies may not have had any dealings in the dean's office, in the principal's office, but because they may respond in a way that is seen as different to other cultures, they can oftentimes be disrespectful, and it sets a terrible trajectory for our girls.
That you're so on point with that. I think that is just so important that when you were speaking to how Black girls respond, that's true. I've even been stereotyped with how I respond because that's my culture. I'm comfortable with speaking like that to my family or my loved ones. So that is absolutely true. Thank you for bringing out that perspective. Anyone else want to comment?
I want to just to piggyback off of that a little bit. I think it sets what Renita just spoke to speaks to the significance of the roles that educators, administrators, community leaders that we play in the lives of Black girls, because Black children, Black girls internalize negative generalizations as well as negative stereotypes that are just all around us. And so then, mirroring what you said, Renita, that sets the trajectory for XYZ. It's like fill in the blanks. And we want to, I think it's a matter of us taking that off the table. So I just wanted to second that the children are internalizing these generalizations and negative stereotypes.
That's good. And so, Chanel, from your perspective of a clinician, how does the socialization of Black girls in America influence the psyche of girls? It looks like you're probably muted.
Can you repeat that one time, only because it just went out?
Okay. No, I was asking from your perspective as a clinician, like how does the socialization of Black girls in America influence the psyche of the girls?
I was thinking about that last night. It definitely affects them mentally, emotionally, and which can come out into physical behavior. So a lot of times, like I would be in the school and it was a lot of fighting, a lot of, I think as Miss Renita said, attitude essay per se. And it was just really that these children did not have the adequate skills or coping skills to get out what was going on with them.
Mm-hmm.
Society won with the stigma and the silence of mental health in the community. That is one. Not having adequate resources in the school was two. So these children was going through a lot of things. And it affected them, and they didn't know how to get it out. So we have something in the mental health fields called fight or flight or freeze. And naturally for them, it was to fight. So they're being criminalized, but no one's actually saying what's going on behind the closed doors to cause them to want to fight and go out. 9 times out of 10, a lot of the situations, like I do mediations with the girls, it wouldn't even be with the other person they're fighting with. It would be something small that was just blown up, but because of something else that is going on, it had affected them mentally. So this is just my way of getting it out. So she rolled her eyes, or she talked to somebody I liked or something like that, and I automatically just snapped on her. In hindsight, I was hungry. I had to stay up all night taking care of my siblings. I saw mommy and daddy fighting. Walking to school every day, I'm walking through the midst of gang activity, prostitution, people trying to position me for different things. I'm going through all these environmental factors. My psyche is affected, and I don't know how to adequately communicate that. So it's coming out into fighting, behavior issues, attitudes, and then I'm getting in trouble. But nobody is working to fix my psyche.
That's good. That's good. Anyone I want to add to that? I want to ask you, Aisha, can you paint a picture of what a typical looks like for a girl in a juvenile detention center?
You said a typical day.
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned earlier that, of course, the Cook County Juvenile Temporary Detention Center is the largest temporary detention center, I think, in the country. So we don't use the language jail or lockup, but it is still a secure facility. And we have a pretty regimented system. So we house about 200, mostly minority residents on a daily basis. The girls' population is not that large. We probably house about 15 to 20 girls on a daily basis. Because we service youth, we are mandated by law to offer them formal education. So we have a Chicago public school within our facility. So daily, the girls are offered education, just like any typical Chicago public educated student. We have school daily from 2 to 8. Virtual learning. So I am the parental liaison of that daily. So you can imagine me having a classroom of 7 to 10 girls on a daily basis. Very interesting. So after school, we have recreational options. Prior to the pandemic, we had a lot of programming options, things like Girls in the Game were coming in, Chicago Run, Story Catchers. During the pandemic, we have to be more creative with programming. So some Zoom resources are offered, dance classes, yoga via Zoom, art classes via Zoom. Also want to mention one vocational resource that we have within the building that we've had one female to complete a licensing barber course that we've had at least one girl complete since it's been in the building. So while I don't want the facility to sound like that I'm giving an infomercial for the facility, because I don't want to promote the detention center as being anything positive, but it is a safe and secure facility if a girl should find herself there.
That's awesome. Thank you for giving us the insight. Some of the things that you mentioned, I didn't even know was, in the detention center. So just knowing that they have schools set up and, they're having normal activities, that's awesome to know. I wanted to ask you also, Aisha, and I'm just interested in this topic right here, is what are some nonviolent offenses that would lead Black girls in Chicago to the detention center?
Well, there are tons of nonviolent offenses: shoplifting, drug offenses, trespassing, possession of weapons. About 50% of our youth are return offenders. So a lot of them come back because of violation of probation. So those are a lot of the reasons why they are coming and returning back to the facility.
And also, possibly when we're looking at nonviolent offenses, homelessness. When I was working, there was a huge reality that could lead a girl to detention center, being homeless or being a victim of sex trafficking.
That's good to know. Sex trafficking is something that I've heard a lot of, and we're going to probably talk about that a little bit more. I do have a question, but I wanted to ask you, Caitlin, your work consists of preparing upper class girls for life after high school. And so what challenges do you see as girls prepare to do this work? What challenges are they facing?
I would say that Black girls are challenged with a culture that does not allow them to make mistakes. It doesn't allow them to express big emotions such as anger. A culture that has a lack of access to careers such as STEM, and a shortage of culturally competent mentors. Black girls desire to be self-sufficient. No matter what anyone says, Black girls desire to be self-sufficient. And unfortunately, there is not enough emphasis put on the problematic policies that prevent girls from thriving.
That's a great answer. And so as they develop from high school, we know they're gonna, go into adulthood. And so Bianca, this would be more so within your arena, like you work with adults. So what does it look like for Black women who has been to prison?
In terms of childhood, going into the criminalization, Black women and their families are significantly higher, have higher indirect contact with the criminal justice system. And what I mean by indirect contact is a family member being incarcerated, or someone just living in their household. And studies show that any child that has a parent or a household member that's incarcerated, they have a higher likelihood of having some sort of developmental, emotional, or behavioral problems that may be seen in the school system. They're also more likely to experience homelessness, nutritional insecurities, instability of a housing situation, healthcare, which all is very traumatic for an adult. And so for a child to experience that, if it's not addressed, that's going to linger and it's going to go into adulthood. Could lead to further criminalization of our young Black girls.
That's absolutely true. It's going to lead to them as an adult not being able to, that pattern following them as an adult. And I think that it's important that we have to talk. This is why we're having this conversation now, is to bring out awareness of this issue and making sure that we can, save our Black girls. We can protect our Black girls from entering into that system. I'm going to go back to you, Renita. And I don't want to pick on the teachers, but I want to ask, like, what were the greatest challenges when working in the classroom as a special education teacher?
Some of the greatest challenges that I face and other teachers face as a special education teacher and as a general education teacher, because I have to put them together, is that oftentimes when we're teaching special education, most of those students are Black boys. And oftentimes when we do have the girls in the classroom, the girls they don't receive the same amount of attention that we have to give to the number of boys in the classroom. So they are pushed off to the side. And that's a microcosm of what happens in society, because Black women essentially are pushed off to the side. So it's a very difficult dynamic in a special education classroom. Now, in a general education classroom, a Black girl has a little bit more of a voice in her classroom because she is not seen as so much as the minority in her classroom. However, the challenges that she faces while she is in there deals with the issues that I discussed earlier. And it's from the teacher's perspective of being able to understand culturally responsive teaching. And if the teacher does not have those strategies and tools to know how to teach culturally responsibly, then the teacher will oftentimes teach in a very biased way. So we're teaching that we learned how to teach. We're teaching from our own experiences. And even as a Black woman, I cannot rely on just my own experiences to be a teacher, nor can I rely on my own experiences to be a principal. I have to utilize the things that I've learned via reading certain books by, Bettina Love and all those types of things, so that I can understand how to effectively train and mentor my teachers so that they can open up and be teachers to their students. So let's just say, for example, when we talk about celebrating our students' history, oftentimes for Black girls, the only time they get celebrated is when? February, Black History Month. That's the only thing that we get. And when we're celebrated for Black History Month, it is just a show, a presentation, assembly. It's something just one day out of the month. And then you get the typical Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Rosa Parks, Sojourner Truth type of history. We never get a chance to see who we are, to get a reflection of where we come from. Everything that we receive is someone else. So once again, we're being pushed to the side while their classmates are hearing all about their history. They're hearing about everything that has happened in their culture, but they hear nothing. And whatever they do hear in their culture is often discussed like on the side as part of the teacher. Did you hear what happened in the news today? Another Black child was shot. Another something would happen. A child was pregnant. That is what is constantly happening in the Black girls' lives. So when the Black girl is like, oh, you got on my nerves and all that type of stuff, just like Chanel said, she doesn't have the words to be able to say, would you please stop saying things that negatively impact my culture and my femininity and my Blackness? No, she doesn't have the words to be able to say that. So then she's going to rely on what she knows. That could be fighting. That could be, smacking her lips. It could just be saying, get out my face. Or it could just be walking out the classroom because she doesn't know how to do it. Once again, we go right back to that cycle all over again, where the teacher is saying on the street to get this child in my classroom. She's so ignorant. She's so disrespectful. And that's not the case. The baby doesn't have the means to be able to communicate effectively as to how she feels. It's a perpetual cycle unless the teacher is actively seeking and implementing culturally responsive instruction.
That is good. Did anyone want to add to that? Renita, I think you've answered that question perfectly. I want to ask you, Chanel, in your career, how have you seen trauma manifest in Black girls' experience in school?
I've seen it manifest in, of course, behaviors, but manifest in isolation. So girls isolating themselves from their classroom, their friends. I've seen it, if you go into a lunchroom, you might see them sitting off to the side, or you go into the gym, you might see them sitting off to the side. I've seen it manifest in bad grades. We think, oh, they might not be getting education. No, it could be just the trauma. So bad grades, I've seen it manifest in attitude. Stop talking to me, or just saying something that we might perceive as disrespectful, right? But it could really just be, as Ms. Streeter said, just the trauma and not being able to communicate. I've seen it in a lack of communication. I've seen it in, fortunately, not wanting to deal with male teachers or not wanting to deal with female teachers because it's something mama did or something daddy did. So I don't deal with men at all, or I just don't deal with women teachers at all. So I've seen it manifest like that. I've seen it manifest, of course, into violence, which is, like Aisha said, the fighting, the bringing weapons. I have a weapon, but I really just had to protect myself because, like I said, when I'm getting to school, I'm having to walk through all these communities and things like that. So then when I get upset, something small, I'm reaching for the first thing. So I've seen trauma manifest in that ways. I've seen trauma manifest in good ways. I wouldn't say good ways, but the popular girl, the girl you might not think something is wrong, but because she's running for everything, she's homecoming queen, she's student body president, she's teacher's assistant, she has all the friends, she's a cheerleader, she might be dating a football player, whatever. I've seen it manifest like that, needing attention, constant attention on them. So it's very, very different ways. It starts with the mind, going to, of course, mental illness, depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, which is very high in the African American community and something we really don't talk about, because a lot of times we might be diagnosing a child with the ADHD or a learning disability or depression, anxiety. A lot of times it is post-traumatic stress disorder. So it is very important to have that child evaluated by a professional and not just a teacher saying, oh, they're just depressed. No, a lot of the times it's because there was some trauma that happened. Oh, let's just put them on medication. No, if we address that a child, somebody saw somebody shot on the block, saw their mom or their dad arguing, fighting, lost a brother, sister, lost a family member. If we dealt with that, maybe they'll be able to focus in school, right? So that's how I've seen trauma manifest away. Trauma attachment. I've had girls and guys that just, I want to be in Miss Hill room all the time. I just want to be attached to her all the time. I just need a hug. I just need love constantly. I just need you to validate me. I need you to affirm me. Miss Hill, do I look pretty today? Did I do well today? You see my grades? Are you coming to my show? So those are different ways that I see trauma manifest. I'm crying a lot for the little ones, always crying, always throwing tantrums because they really can't verbalize, like, I'm hurting right now, or I'm scared, or I'm this triggered me, you triggered me, or somebody dropped a book and I think of a gunshot, so now I'm right. So those are the things that I've seen trauma manifest in especially our Black girls.
Wow, I mean, that is good. Anyone want to add to that? I mean, Aisha, I see your hand.
Yeah, and I just want to add that, I recognize that a kid is struggling, and I recognize trauma manifesting in detention when a girl is wetting the bed, a girl is struggling with eating. We mentioned already lashing out, fighting, withdrawing. She doesn't want to come out of her room. A girl may not want to change her clothes. She may not want to shower, or she may excessively want to shower, spend excessive amount of time in the bathroom. Girls have so many layers, and we're always trying to figure things out with the girls, or trying to, understand what's going on with them. So we have to be hyper vigilant with our girls all the time to, you know, because we can almost miss things if we don't pay attention all the time with the girls, especially in detention. And especially, I know that we're going to get into it a little later, but especially when we're dealing with girls who are in the life or have been exposed to different sex crimes. Those are the things that we have to really, really be aware of and pay attention to. Yeah, especially, you know, molestation and rape. We have to be really, really aware of those sorts of things and pay really, really close attention.
I appreciate that. And I was going to actually get into this next question, and thank you for bringing it up right now. So I was going to ask you, Aisha, because I've heard that there's a lot of girls in the juvenile detention center, not just in Chicago, but in other detention centers for sex trafficking. So you do work with Black girls who are victims of sex trafficking. So can you tell us what it means and what it looks like for Black girls to be a victim of sex trafficking in Chicago? And how do juvenile courts support girls?
Well, what I first like to say, what it's not, you know, because people are so jaded and they think that it is the movie Taken, and it's Caucasian girls or foreign girls going to another country being snatched and sold away. But human trafficking is taking place right here in our neighborhoods, right here in our schools, in our churches, right underneath our noses. It is the second most lucrative crime in the world, only second to the dope game, you know, and the age of entry is 12 years old. I haven't seen a 12-year-old prostitute, but I have seen a 14-year-old prostitute. So, so I'm going to say that I don't have a definite number, but I'm going to say probably every other girl that comes in.
I'm sorry, please explain. Prostitution is not just standing on the corner.
Prostitution it absolutely is not just standing on the corner. And I wrote down the definition and I misplaced it, but sex trafficking is the exchange of anything of value, any sex crime of value. So if you think, what is value to you? You know, value may be your house, you know, value may be shelter. It may be food. It may be, you know, a warm place to stay. It may be safety, you know. So the question is, what does it mean for Black girls to be a victim of sex trafficking? Well, a lot of our girls don't even know that they're victims, is one thing that I want people to understand. You know, a lot of girls think that the man that is victimizing them is their boyfriend, because the man that has targeted them has picked out the most vulnerable little girl and has chosen the girl that is homeless. She's a runaway, and he has isolated her, and he has made her to think that she's the only one that she has, you know. So she doesn't even realize at this point that she's a victim. So she thinks that this is her boyfriend. So only recently has the United States even recognized trafficking. I think maybe only in the last 12 years have they even recognized trafficking as a crime, because prior to them recognizing trafficking as a crime, our girls were being brought in as prostitutes and they were being victimized and criminalized as, you know, being charged as prostitutes and being arrested. But anybody younger than 18 can't give consent, you know. So
Aisha,
I'm sorry.
I wanted to just jump in here and just clarify for like those of us who may not be as familiar with being a victim of sex trafficking. A child cannot be a prostitute because they cannot consent to sex. So it's very important when we're having this conversation, not us, but just as a community, that, and it goes to problematic policies. It's important for us to use the correct language so that the investment into this issue that is disproportionately affecting African American girls, it's important. So our girls are being victimized, as Aisha said, being victimized. They are victims of sex trafficking, not prostitutes, because they cannot consent to sex.
Correct.
And I want
Right.
to jump in there as well. I just want to be careful with using that term of prostitute, because that goes into the adultification of our young Black girls.
Yep.
So I definitely agree with what Mrs. Palmer said as well.
And I appreciate that. Bianca, let me ask you, what is the most significant difference in working with adults versus youth?
In my experience, I would say as an adult, the older you get, the less likely you are to change. You're pretty much set in your ways. With children, it's more likely the earlier that you can, reach them or be a positive force in their life, the more likely you are to bring about a positive change and change that trajectory of their life. So when I work with my clients and I talk to them about, their life choices and how they ended up seeing me and sitting down with me, it all started in their childhood. And that's why I'm so passionate about working with youth to be that light. And if I'm not the light, then to find that source of light for them to bring about that change.
Mm-hmm. And I want to ask you also, Bianca, this is like a two-part question. Like, how can we as the community provide support to Black girls in Chicago and beyond? Like, how can we do that?
I think it goes back to part one when we first discussed the burden that our young Black girls have of adultification, seeing them as not being in need of protection or support, seeing them as being more responsible for their actions, which in turn leads to punishment instead of getting the help and the support that they actually need, which also leads to being involved with the juvenile justice system. So being cognizant of, your implicit biases and working on that. See our young Black girls as you see your own non-white, non-Black children. See them for what they are, a child, and treat them as protect and nurture our Black girls. Speak up and speak out when you see our young Black girls being treated any other type of way than they should be treated. And it ultimately just takes a village mindset. All of us, a community. We all need to come together and be there to support our young Black girls. It sounds easy, but evidently it's not.
I think it's so important. We can't look over it. Like I feel like I always tell individuals it's important to be a positive role model out here. Mentorship is very important. We cannot stereotype our girls and put them in categories. Like we really, really need to reach out and help our girls. If we see something, we have to, be that person, be that role model for them, be that help for them. And so I appreciate that, because as a community, we all must come together to do this. Like you said, it takes a village. It definitely takes a village. I was going to say,
Shatina, can I jump in for 1 second?
Definitely.
I just want to jump in on what everybody is saying about how to help our girls. And another way that we can help our girls in the school system is a common phrase that we hear all the time is that she should know better. And she already knew that. I told her that yesterday, so she should have already known that. Or her mother knows better. Didn't her mother teach her that? Didn't her father teach her that? These are common stereotypes and phrases that are said over children all the time. And we cannot assume that they know that already. That is what we do constantly. We're always assuming that someone has taught them, even that someone has shared that with a mother, a father, a grandmother, or an uncle who is raising a Black girl. And it does not mean just because they are an adult that they know how to handle this particular situation. So it is up to us to go that extra mile and sometimes have those very courageous and brave conversations with not only our Black girls, but with our teachers and their family members to address those concerns. Yes, it is uncomfortable to discuss certain things with a family member about a concern or behavior that you have about a child, but it is necessary for the livelihood of that Black child, of that Black girl. And another thing that I wanted to pick up on is that as you guys are talking about sex trafficking, and I think about young girls and their sexual promiscuity at a young age, and times when we have often our Black girls can develop a little bit earlier than some of the non-Black girls, and so they might have larger boobs at an earlier age. They might have larger hips and thighs or a larger butt. But that does not mean that they are being sexually promiscuous, but often that is put on them. That's that adultification that gets put onto them. And then they're saying, oh yeah, she's gonna be pregnant by the time she's, whoa, that's not what we do. Oh, I know all the boys gonna be after you. And this is said to the girls when sometimes they're not even thinking about a boy or someone.
That is so true.
But we're putting this onto the girls. When I was your age, I didn't have legs like that. That is not necessary, nor is it needed. We're putting things onto children that is not necessary, it is not needed, and it's not helpful for their development. And even the young ladies that are involved in sex at a young age, just because they're having sex at a young age does not mean that they are willingly having sex at a young age. And so that's another thing that us as educators have to be willing to step in and have these conversations. Now, you can only have these conversations if you develop that rapport and the relationship with these Black girls in order to do this. And it cannot happen just because you're their teacher. It can't happen just because you're the lunch lady. It has to happen because you are willing to dig in and really want to help these young ladies, these young Black girls, and dig into their lives in order to be alive to them. All they really want is somebody just to listen to them, hear them out. When you take the time to listen to them, it's amazing what they will pour out of their hearts. It's amazing the things that they have shared with me, from babies all the way up to high school and beyond, just because I took the time to listen. And sometimes listening only takes 5 minutes. It's not like it takes 30 minutes to do so. But these are the type of things that we have to do for our babies in order to help them to not get into these positions that we're discussing in our panel today.
Yep. Anyone want to add to that?
I just want to say, everything you were saying, I was right, because I just had an on, I think Saturday. I was talking to somebody and they were saying, oh, such and such came back, or we were at a barbecue and she has a body on her now. And I had to stop them, like, why are we sexualizing her? She was like, well, I wasn't the only one commenting on her, but was poking out. So society, family, this is what we do, right? So we have to be the ones, and not just educators, because sometimes you think, putting the solution just on the educators, like, what can you do? What can we do? What can we do as a community? Because it takes a village, right? So when you hear somebody saying the infamous words, oh, she acting fast, or she's this, or she's wearing that, or this, and this about our young Black girls, stopping them in their tracks, like, chill out. Like, we're not going to do that. She's fine. Why are we even commenting on her body? She's 16 years old. As Mashida said, she probably not even thinking. She's developed, okay. But we're not going to put out those stereotypes that historically we have here. Because I've heard it when I was a young girl. I heard it, developing early, little comments and things like that. The myth, oh, somebody touching on you, now you have breast. So we have to start doing that in our families, in the conversations that we have. And if we're at a family barbecue or somewhere, shutting that down, because that doesn't help. It helps start the decriminalization of them. It helps start the adultification, because we're looking at them as adults So that's starting the whole process. So I just wanted to add that because I was like, yes, that's one thing I hate. Like, don't be around me talking about somebody's acting fast and young girls, this and this and that, because that doesn't help. And we have to think about ourselves as being part of the solutions and not just relying on a social worker or principal or somebody that works in the school.
I love that you said being a part of the solution. I think all of us probably as African American women have been stereotyped. You know, I can recall growing up and there was a subset of people, I actually walked in a room on them saying, oh, she's going to be pregnant in high school. And I'm like, what? So, you know, I could have took that the wrong way, but that wasn't my journey. That's not what God had planned for me. You know, despite how my body was developing or despite, you know, I hung around with guys out, you know, I just feel like I was put in so many categories to not be successful, and look at me now. So I feel like we have to just make sure that we are depositing positivity within our girls, pushing them on, giving them good information, not putting stereotypes on them. We have to stop that. We have to cut that out now. And when I hear it, I love to address it to say, hey, no, we ain't speaking that on her life. But you guys, ladies, bring out some really great points. And I want to really talk about the change. And so, Renita, I want to come back to you and ask, like, what ways does your position as a principal allow you to drive change?
I have a lot of different opportunities in which I can drive change. One thing that we are pushing as a district and as within our school is cultural proficiency, and it's culturally responsive teaching, instruction. It is teaching our staff understand the different cultures that are within our school, and not just culture, because it's not always about black, white, red, and yellow. It is about boys and girls and the differences in between, and how to work with our children, how to understand our children, how to support our community. There are so many different things that are going on in our families' lives, and it's also important for us to move ourselves to the side. What we're working on right now is a lot about know thyself. We have to know and understand ourselves before we can actually even learn about culturally responsive teaching, so that we can understand what our implicit biases are. And then we can move them out so that we can see clearly what's in front of us. If we don't understand where we come from and what things that we have in our own way, even as Black women, it's just because we're Black does not mean we do not have biases, because we do.
That's good. That's true.
We really have to be very, very aware of that. And we also have to be very aware that we cannot lean on, because I'm Black, I'm going to show special privileges and things like that to other people of color. It doesn't. That does not help the whole cycle of what's happening in our schools. Another thing that we have to do as educators is we have to push the diversity in our schools. The representation of the educators that are in our school is lacking. It is lacking severely. Our children do not get a chance to see other people who look like them teaching in front of them. And that's on every platform of education, from preschool all the way beyond in postgraduate studies. And that is what our children need in various ways. We also need mentors. We need grandmothers, we need grandfathers, we need uncles, we need aunties, we need cousins, we need everybody to reach out. Our teachers, I have to admit, our teachers are willing to help. But honestly, a lot of them are exhausted at the end of the day. And I'm pressing, I'm begging, can you stay? Can you do such and so on? So, but I also have to realize that they're tired. I'm also pushing self-care for my staff, and I want them to take care of themselves. And so we can't have people who are doing everything and then they have nothing left for themselves. So we do need the village to come together to support our children. You know, we used to have, moms that used to come to the school, and I realized we don't have that anymore. A lot of moms are working, but a lot of grandmothers and great aunts and uncles are not. So if they can come in and just be supportive in any type of fashion, I don't care if it's in the cafeteria, if it's recess, after school program, intervention, whatever it is so helpful to the development of all of our children, but especially our Black girls. We need it. They are lacking it in so many different ways.
So as it relates to, and thank you for your comment, Renita. As it relates to high school girls, Caitlin, I want to ask, how can Black girls thrive in high school? And what factors contribute to their success?
I would say that Black girls can thrive by the culture of public schools being reconstructed to host an environment that welcomes Black girls as fully human and multidimensional. And this looks like offering Black girls in school love and understanding. It looks like inviting the family of Black girls to participate, to fully be engaged in the school. And it also looks like teaching Black girls how to create and operate business in America so that they will be able to withstand, to cope, and compete.
That's good. That's good. That is good. And I want to go back. This will be my last question as it relates to the juvenile detention center. But when girls enter the juvenile detention center, what challenges are communicated? Meaning, what are the challenges they are communicating to those around them?
Well, I think that most challenges is that when they're out, that there are no resources for them. They're deposited into their community with nobody to help them when they get out. There's no like bridging of the gap. So they're right back in the same situations. They don't really have a strong family dynamic, so nobody to help them re-enroll in school or nobody to help them figure out a job situation. So they get back right into the same routine that lands them right back into the same situation. So a lot of times I hear girls say that if I only had an opportunity to talk to you, then maybe I wouldn't have done X, Y, and Z. But I'm not a resource when they're released.
Wow. So sounds like we need some programs for the young ladies.
And people say that, there are a lot of resources for girls, but I think that girls are forgotten. There are a lot of things that are really geared towards the boys, and our girls are the forgotten piece that people forget that the girls need things too. The girls need to be remembered that when they're released from the facility, they need help. There are mothers that need resources, especially teenage mothers that need resources, homeless girls that need resources, and they just don't have them. Go ahead.
I want to with Ivy when she said that girls may tell her, if I only could talk to you when I'm out, it could make the world a difference. It could change their lives. And I think that goes back to policies that, although I can understand why that policy is in place, if there's not an alternative, it's problematic, because within a detention center, there are very intimate, beautiful relationships that are being built with our girls. It's not you stay over here and I'll stand over here and tell you what to do. That's not how it looks. It looks like Black women nurturing, giving to, offering, telling stories, sharing stories with Black girls who are soaking them up. And once they leave, I think that it's like, cutting an umbilical cord prematurely, and you just send this baby out into the world, and she doesn't have a mentor. She can't call you. You can't talk to her. You can't send her a care package. That's problematic policy when there are not alternatives. Whereas maybe every girl who left the detention center, there's a mentor that she's assigned. I
think that is one of the biggest challenges and traumas that the detention center that can impose on a kid, to just sever the relationships that we build, especially when we have a kid that's there for long term. and they sever the relationship when they leave. I think it's very, very traumatic for a kid, and sometimes traumatic for us too.
I can only imagine definitely being a mentor, building that relationship with your mentee or that individual that you see every single day that you're pouring advice to. And I can only imagine when you guys say that resources are needed, I'm up here thinking like, what resources can Mean Girls provide? Because, you know, I mean, I have a passion to serve young ladies. And so it's kind of like if it's job placement, if it's, helping you get back to school or getting your GED or even going to college, like we need to make sure that we take the next steps to provide these opportunities for our girls. So I must connect with you all outside of offline, but thank you for sharing that, because I know that there's some challenges, but knowing those challenges have now got my mind thinking on what can we do to help. I want to also ask you, Chanel, and this question is really more so to help parents. So as parents, how can we best advocate for our girls? And what strategies do you suggest for parents?
So from what I've seen and I've experienced, one is becoming involved. So as Michelle said, I know it's hard, you have to work and things like that, but becoming involved, being in the school. So parent teacher conferences, back to school nights, report card pickups, making your face known to the people at the administration there at the school to know like this girl or my daughter, she has somebody. So what we're not going to do is play because she has an army and a village around her. That's one.
Yeah.
Two, board. People don't know this, but parents can join the school board. You can join the school boards in your community and for your school. All you have to do is ask the school for whatever district you're in or where your school's at, what feeder pattern that is, when the next school district meeting is. You can absolutely, and I don't think too many people know about it because I didn't find out until later either. I actually thought about running and I was like, no, that's too much. But going to the school board meetings, joining the board, running for the board, advocating in your community, letting people know what's going on in schools, getting the word out there, advocacy, social media is big. So if you have to put something on social media, schools don't like that. So that brings more attention. Your voice is the most powerful thing you have as a parent to advocate for your child. So using your voice, wherever it might be, showing up, your child likes to see that. At games or whatever they might be participating in, right? So those are ways that children, that parents can help their child. It's all about advocacy. It's about getting the word out. It's about using your voice in ways unknown, writing letters to the school superintendent, going to her conferences and asking questions. You can do that. These are things within your rights that you can do that many parents don't know that they can do. Introducing yourself to the teachers, principal, finding out where where they can get funding for more programs. Another big one, like Mean Girls Empowerment, seeing what programs are in the community or available. I know we have Mean Girls Empowerment. In Chicago, there's Ladies of Virtue, there's Polished Pebbles. There are a couple other programs out there for the young ladies to join for mentorship, for cultivation to get out there. Understand as a parent, you don't have to do it by yourself. The village, I grew up with the village mentality, and my hope is that we get back to that village mentality to help our children in our schools. So really just using your voice and advocating, that's the best way you can help your child.
That's awesome. I have two more questions, and I think that these questions will definitely kind of bring an overall scope to our conversation. And Bianca, I lean on you for like resources and statistics and like the deep dive information. So I want to ask you, like, are there any statistics that would be beneficial for those of us who are being introduced to criminalization of Black girls?
Definitely. Some research out there, between the ages of 10 and 17, our young Black girls are 4 times more likely than any other race to be incarcerated. And it goes to a point of what Aisha said. Of the incarcerated youth, young girls comprise 15% of that. Because of that, it's not a lot of research out there about our young girls, or even women for that matter. And since the 1980s, women, along with young girls, the incarceration rate has risen over 7 times over since the 1980s. And there's not a lot of research out there about females, about young girls. And furthermore, more than 60% of women who are in prison have children who are under the age of 18.
Wow.
And so that goes back to what I initially said. When you have a child that has indirect contact with the criminal justice system, look at that path, that life cycle, and what that will lead to. We have a lot of motherless children out here, people, and it takes a village mindset. It takes those mentors. Us on this panel, the people that are watching, mentor, be there, be that source of light. And if you're not it, then find it.
Thank you for sharing. And we have to keep talking about this situation to bring awareness in our community. I'm losing my thoughts. I want to ask you, Caitlin, I'm so sorry. Based on your students, because you work closely with the students, especially within high school, how are Black girls in school defining success for themselves?
So Black girls are asking questions. My students are advocating for themselves, and they're pushing the margins.
Mm-hmm.
They still need support, and Black girls are exploring pathways, even though they may not be 100% sure. Black girls are doing what they have always done, which is to survive. With that survival, Black girls deserve more than just to survive. We deserve to thrive. They deserve to thrive. Our children do. So with this conversation, I'm just pushing for action on all of our parts, even more so because we're out in the field. And I know this it's just action work so that we can set up the conditions for our girls to thrive.
That's awesome. Anyone want to add to that? Like Renita, I know you work with
one very small thing, and that is restorative practices. I don't know how I let that slip from my mind, but restorative practices is for everybody, and it flows through all of our capacities in our various fields that we're in, and particularly in the educational system. It is very common for infraction to occur, and then there's a penalty for that infraction. And the restorative practices comes into place where you have alternatives to those statistical, typical type of penalties, such as detention, suspension, and unfortunately, the worst case scenario would be expulsion. And those restorative practices comes into play in many different types of ways, where the teacher can be working with students in circles and in mediations and all types of things like that, all the way to where even the administrators, the community members are all working together. But this just gives an opportunity for us to heal students from within, not try to squash the situation. All we're doing is just removing the students from the learning environment, which does not help the situation at all. They're losing out on their academic achievement, and they have also learned nothing about the situation that they were in, nor have we as educators even figured out why they even got involved in the situation in the first place. So that restorative practices part speaks a lot to what Aisha was talking about, and how her girls are there. They've developed all of these restorative practices, and then they're severed. And then similarly, what we're doing when we're in elementary school and high school, we are them all the way through, and all of a sudden we're telling them, but we want you to talk it out. Use your words, express your feelings. But if we, the educators, are squashing their feelings and not giving them a chance to use their words, then it's a perpetual cycle. So that's where the restorative practices comes into play in many different angles, that we need to support our children to be able to have the communicative conversation to be able to discuss what their feelings are, heal from the inside, and then figure out how to move forward. This is how we help not only our Black girls, but all children be able to move forward.
Wow, that is good. That is good.
And I
Anyone
just
else
want
want
to
to
add
add?
too, or small, less funding for so many police in the schools and more funding for school counselors, school social workers, school mental health professionals, mentoring programs.
Yes, yes, I'm pro that. We need more funding of individuals that are willing to really help push our students to success. I will say, ladies, this has been a great conversation. I appreciate all of you just taking the time to come hang back out with me. This has been good. We have to continue to talk about this. As mentioned, I hope to have you all in person really soon once COVID is like finally over. We can come back, and Mean Girls is going to be having a conference in October, and I am hoping that each of you can join this panel to discuss more of this topic. I appreciate you guys again. Thank you so much. I love each and every one of you. Let's continue to empower our Black girls. Let's continue to empower our Black girls. I'm going to say it again. Let's continue to empower our Black girls. I'll see you all soon. Have a great one, and good night, Facebook and Twitter. I'm sorry, Twitter. We on Facebook. We on YouTube. We on Twitter, and we're also going to post the Instagram. So all of our viewers, all of our family, we hope that if you wasn't able to tune in, that you'll come back and watch it. But thank you all so much. Please like, please share this video. This is a conversation that we must continue to push throughout our community. So please share and like the video. Thank you all so much again. Good night, everyone.